So YouTube has just released a mind-blowing stat about podcast viewers on YouTube. Check this out. As of today, more than 1 billion, that's billion with a B, monthly active viewers of podcast content on YouTube. Over 1 billion viewers. So that means video podcast. They went on to say this too, that YouTube now is the most frequently used service for listening to podcasts in the US and often the first place people go to when looking for a new podcast. And they recently announced that they were #1 over Spotify and even Apple. And if you think about it, Apple's kind of where podcasts started, wasn't it? Video podcasting is not this just fringe thing. It is a big deal. So in this video, I want to show you why you may want to consider starting a podcast. And when I say podcast, video podcast on YouTube, and I'll show you how to start your very own podcast on YouTube. Hey there, Kevin Colby here. Now let's talk about why podcast on YouTube. First of all, it's the search and discoverability. YouTube is a search engine, among other things. It's the second biggest search engine in the world, #2 to Google, which owns YouTube, kind of works together. One of the things I've personally noticed in my own podcast listening experience is that you can't really find anything on Spotify or Apple. It's even hard to get to. And unless I know the name of a show, there's a few podcasts I enjoy listening to. Unless I know the names of the show, I can't search by really titles and things like that. If you do, it's just not that intuitive. YouTube's completely different. So if you're searching for something like on my episodes, I title them like a YouTube video. And so this one will actually be labeled a podcast. And so therefore, anybody on YouTube that's looking for something or searching for something, the episode will show up. YouTube gives you search and discoverability that no other platform does, which will also help a podcast as well. A second reason is long form. Viewers really like long form. Yeah, I know, shorts, those are the big rave, and that's fine. But more and more people are choosing long form. Long form is easier to monetize as well because you can potentially have more ad breaks, which if you're in the partner program is great as well. But even if you're selling sponsorships, you can offer more. So think about this, is that if you're already doing something that is more longer form in nature, whether it's interview shows or whether it's just long, like a documentary type thing or investigative, or it's just like a talking head, you like to talk about things and share things or teach things, longer form works perfectly, especially for a podcast. And again, we've already shown that YouTube is the place for podcasts. Another reason why YouTube podcasts, I think, are growing so much is because of YouTube Music. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like YouTube Music is that good. I think it's okay. I pay for YouTube Premium, which basically means I can watch videos without ads. But because of that, I get YouTube Music for free. So that's what I tend to use because I'm not going to pay for another subscription. When you have a podcast on YouTube, it will automatically show up on YouTube Music, which is then extra eyeballs or earballs or whatever they want to be for your channel. So that's really important. It's kind of like you get YouTube Music, a whole nother platform, if you will, because there is an app just for YouTube Music. It's like you get that for free or as a bonus with your YouTube channel. So whenever like this video right here will be marked as a podcast. So that means it will show up on my channel. Anybody looking for it, hopefully in search or recommendation on YouTube, and it will also show up in YouTube Music. So more exposure for your podcast. Now, could you also publish it to Spotify and other places? Absolutely. But this is about really using YouTube to further your message with podcasting and video podcasting. Okay, so now that we've covered all that, I want to show you how to set up a podcast on YouTube, and we'll actually do it by setting up one of mine. But first, in case you need extra help, yeah, I'm going to plug it. I co-wrote a book called Video Podcasting Made Easy with my buddy Ross Brand. I don't want to cover up his name. It's available on Amazon, and it's exactly what it says. It's a step-by-step guide to creating a video podcasting. I just want to mention that there will be a link down below. All right, there's my plug for the book. Now let's jump into my studio and I'll show you how to set up a podcast on YouTube. So you want to go to your YouTube studio and you want to click on Create. It's all the way in the upper right-hand corner. When you click on it, you see all these options, and we're going to go down to New Podcast. Now, you notice you'll have 3 options here. You can create a new podcast, you can set an existing playlist as a podcast, or you can submit an RSS feed. So let's say you already have a podcast somewhere like Apple or Spotify or somewhere. When you do, it automatically generates what's called an RSS feed. It stands for, I think it's rich syndication. I don't really know what it stands for, but it's a code. So you can take that link and you can actually import that into YouTube, and that will actually just bring your podcast episodes into YouTube. I'm not really going to get into that, but it is an option to do. This is more about just starting one either from new or converting a playlist. So let me show you those steps. So if you go to create a new podcast, and if you notice, you're going to have a title. This is the title of the podcast, a description, whatever you want to call it. You can be short or lengthy. Thumbnail. Now let's talk a little bit about the thumbnail here. If you notice, it says upload a square picture that represents your podcast. I highlighted square because I think on YouTube we're thinking about thumbnails and we're thinking about 16 by 9. Most, and actually all podcast artwork, they're square. So you'll have to have a square version of your podcast art. Now, depending on where you created it, Canva or some of these other programs, if you do have like a wide or a 16 by 9 logo, typically they give you an option of resizing. However you do it, it will have to be a square logo, and then that'll be the cover art for your podcast. Like for example, here's one of my podcasts right here. If you notice, there's the logo and it's square. You can actually see that right there. It still tells me upload a square picture that represents your podcast. So you'll have to have a square cover art logo for your podcast. So we're back on the option of creating a new podcast, your first option. Then when you get past the thumbnail, you'll see the visibility in sort order. This is the visibility of the podcast. You want it public or private, unlisted. This applies just like any other video. If you put it on private, nobody's going to see it. If you put it unlisted, you're going to have the link. So if you want your podcast to be seen and heard, make it public. You also have the option of how you want the videos to be shown in there. Now, you can change this at any time. You can do manually sorted. I think right now mine is set to date published. And keep in mind, published is when it actually goes live. It's not when you upload it. So if you wanted that, then you could choose date added. Again, I recommend date published because it'll always show you the newest episode. So again, under the option of create a new podcast, we're at add videos. And again, YouTube tells you right here, a podcast is a type of playlist. So if you choose to do it this way, you're going to have to choose existing videos to add to the podcast. Well, what you would do, click add videos, and it's going to take you to your library. Obviously, you're going to have videos to make this work. So you see, this is every video on my channel, and it'll only show you so many, so I could type in other options. And if I wanted to add one here, and I could add one here, and I could add one here, and then I hit done and it will add those. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to actually turn a playlist into one. So let me show you that. I'm going to go back to create new podcast, and I'm going to do set an existing playlist as a podcast. And I have this playlist right here called Ask Kevin Almost Anything, and I'm going to click that. Now, notice what it did. It automatically pulled in the title and the description. And the reason it did that is because I'm using a playlist I already have. So there is a playlist on my channel called Ask Kevin Almost Anything. So once I click that, then it's already kind of doing some of the work for me in a way as a default. So again, this is why YouTube has made it so easy to just take what you have and convert it to a podcast. So now it's time to add a thumbnail. So I didn't have a thumbnail for this playlist, so I just created one. So let me grab it, and this is the one I created. I kind of like it. Somebody did this for me for another channel I did for a bit with two other guys called Three Dads and a Joke. So there you go. So I'm going to add that, and it's uploading, and there it is. So again, notice it's a square. Now, since this is a playlist, I don't have to add videos, but I still have the same options. Do I want to make it unlisted, private, or public? I'm going to make it public, and I'm going to do date published by newest, and I'm going to hit done. And guess what? It just created our podcast. I'm going to go to content. I'm going to go to podcast, and there it is right there. And just like your other videos, if I click here, it's going to show me that. There's the settings we did right there. And there are the videos already in there in the option I did it. Now, if you want to add more videos to that, see the little drop down over here, add videos. You could click that. You could add new videos, choose existing videos. So whenever I do a video, so we'll look at this one right here. And if you notice, if you scroll all the way down under playlist, I have the option right here Now this shows up as a podcast because we said this is a podcast. It'll still be a playlist on my channel, but it'll also show up as a podcast as well. All right, now let me show you, again, since this is live, when you go to your homepage, or this is my channel page, you notice you see videos, shorts, live, podcast. Well, look at that. There's the one we just created. There's the one I use most of the time. Another one I created. Again, these were all playlists. And there's the one we just did. And if I click, should you delete a bad, you notice it right there. And then there's your playlist right there of videos as well. So it's a super cool way of creating a podcast that easily on YouTube and then taking advantage of all the people that are continuing to look for longer form podcasts and whatever you have to share with the World Wide Web. Hope this helped you. Do a podcast and keep creating on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.